Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clay's Couch here. I'm your host, Clay D, the one and only, coming at you the best way that I know how. And I'm welcome here tonight. I'm glad to have on the virtual couch, he is a candidate for the city of Raleigh, coming up in an important election for my neighboring city of Raleigh here, as I live in Durham. But thank you for joining a virtual couch tonight, Minu. How's it going out there?
Yeah, that's great. It's great. And thanks for having me here today.
It's definitely my pleasure for sure. So, Minu, if you could just tell everyone about yourself, just tell us who you are, what you're about, and what you're looking to do for the city of Raleigh.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I'm a first generation Korean American. My parents, my two older sisters, and I moved to this country when I was just a month old.
Oh, wow.
Like so many families, across the country, we didn't really come from lavish beginnings. We lived paycheck to paycheck. We had to rent out 1 to 2 bedroom apartments in Raleigh, just so we could save little by little in the hopes that we might have enough money one day to pay for our own house. I found my passion in public service at a young age. I remember I served as a state senate, state house, governor's page when I was in high school. That's truly what sparked my interest in serving my community. Today, I currently serve as a guardian ad litem, a court-appointed volunteer that serves to voice the needs and desires of abused and neglected children during the court process. I currently work as a substitute teacher for the Wake County Public School System. I volunteer as a radio news reader for the North Carolina Reading Service, reading the news to blind and print impaired individuals across our state. I was also elected by City of Raleigh employees to serve a 4-year term as a commissioner on the Raleigh Civil Service Commission, ensuring the fair treatment of our city employees. But I'm also a student at North Carolina State University studying political science.
Wow, that's definitely have a pretty sizable resume there. And how old are you, Minu?
Yeah, I am 20 years old. 20 years old.
20 years old. That's impressive. That's impressive background already. I could tell you that for someone who had a pretty active and civically engaged life myself coming up, especially in this area, I definitely love to see that and commend that as well to you.
Thank you.
Because it's not easy, especially being young and being out there and just trying to get everyone on the same page and really respect you and take you serious. So it's definitely not easy work, but it's work that has to be done, because I always feel that you need to have representation in all forms of government, but also within that vein, have representation amongst all ages, demographics, income levels. And we don't have a oligarchy. We have a democracy. So that's why I always try to communicate when it all often gets thrown at me. And I'm sure it's probably been levied your way as well. Well, wait your turn, or
Right.
you need to
Right.
get more meat on the bones. Have you encountered any of that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hear it all the time pretty much. You don't have enough experience, that sort of talk. But if anything, it motivates me to keep going. It doesn't stop me. It doesn't dishearten me. It motivates me to keep going, and I just want to prove them wrong, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, just prove them wrong. That's the best that you
Yeah.
can do all the time, and for sure. And what made you want to run for city council of Raleigh specifically? What was it about this particular office that made you want to basically file your papers and get the petition signed and start that whole process? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I made the decision to run for city council because primarily for far too long, we've neglected to address the issues of yesterday and face them today. I mean, we have a growing housing shortage crisis on our hands. We aren't doing enough to support our small businesses. I see traffic building up all along our transit corridors. And, we've come to a point where we have to realize that we can't afford to keep playing catch up. We can't afford to keep shuffling our feet while families in Raleigh continue to struggle and suffer. We need effective leadership, effective action, effective progress that not only mitigates the issues of today, but look towards the horizon and work towards a greater future for our city and those who call Raleigh home. Uh, but not only that, but I strongly believe that District B needs better. I mean, we need better leadership. District B needs better representation and better solutions to the ever evolving issues that our city faces.
I definitely agree with you there, for sure. And I wanted to ask you just directly, what do you consider, Manu, to be the ever-present challenges facing Raleigh today in 2022? For one of the
Yeah,
reasons for which why you're even running.
yeah, absolutely. So there are three key issues that I want to address with this campaign. First off, like I said, we have a growing housing crisis on our doorsteps. Raleigh is growing, whether we like it or not. More and more people across the nation are moving towards Raleigh and looking towards Raleigh as the city of opportunities. I know my family did when we moved to this city over 14 years ago. As such, I believe that we must do what we can to accommodate this growth properly. That is why I fully support the responsible development of walkable neighborhoods wherever appropriate. I believe that it's time to embrace, incorporate, and work towards aspects of new urbanism, smart growth, complete streets, and green design as our city continues to face a growing population. Um, we're not only facing a growing population, but we're also facing a declining climate, worsening housing shortage, rising rent. These are all things that we can work towards to mitigate. And we need to work towards quality architecture and design, mixed use developments, green transportation, sustainability and affordability. I think it's time to move away from the focus on primarily single use zones and start to promote the planning and designing of our city in a way that is adaptable and based on outcomes. I strongly believe that it's time to mitigate urban sprawl, promote equality and equity, to create a distinctive, attractive city of Raleigh with a strong sense of place. Second, we have a growing traffic problem all along our major transit corridors in District
Mhm.
B and in Raleigh as a whole. Going up and down Capitol Boulevard is a hassle, especially during peak traffic hours. And In fact, a month ago, my campaign manager, Elijah Geist, and we decided to see how long it takes for someone taking public transit that lives in Northeast Raleigh to commute to work all the way down to downtown Raleigh. And, what we found was absurd. It took over 3 hours for a regular basis.
Wow.
That's simply absurd. Yeah, that should never happen. Our public transit system should never be in such a state. And quite frankly, it's no wonder why people, especially those in neighborhoods outside of the 540 Beltline, continue to drive to work rather than ride public transit. Well, because of this, a top priority of mine, if elected as councilman, will be to improve our public transit system, expand our public transportation options and move towards commuter rails, light rails, more bike lanes, and more walkable neighborhoods. It's time that Raleigh continues to work towards transportation that is affordable, accessible, efficient, and equitable for everyone. But last but not least, as the son of a small business owner myself, I
Mhm.
understand some of the issues small businesses face when trying to build a solid foundation to maintain a successful business. Our small businesses are hurting, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's difficult to start and maintain a small business. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy here in Raleigh, and they ensure the further progression of our city. So as a result, I'm going to work hard to ensure that the city of Raleigh provides the proper resources and funds for struggling small business owners to ensure that they remain a key part of our local economy. But not only that, but I believe that we can work towards promoting multimodal methods of transportation and move towards walkable neighborhoods in order to increase foot traffic to further assist our small businesses.
Mhm. Very, very good. Very good knowledge there for sure. I do kind of have to ask, just to kind of piggyback
Yeah.
off of that. What will you do to assist with affordable housing and gentrification within the city of Raleigh? Because as you know, housing costs and everything is going up, and this is something that the constituency will want to know
Yeah.
as you're seeking this office, and if you hopefully assume this office. So, what types of strategies or policies will you help put in place in order to basically alleviate this housing crisis and even gentrification within the city, which kind of compounds it even more so?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I believe that the first thing we have to do is educate the people around us. We need to educate them that growth can be and is a great thing for Raleigh. We need to educate them that walkable neighborhoods and the shift to focus on transit-oriented development is the future. We need to be willing to work with urban planners, listen to the experts and our citizens in order to develop comprehensive plans that aim to lift up our underserved communities and while also ensuring that Raleigh continues to be one of the best cities in America. In terms of gentrification, the people who are most affected by this are our underserved, underrepresented, and elderly people. There's an organization here called One Wake, and I completely agree that the city and county should absolutely examine potential ways to implement a property tax relief or subsidy to ensure that we aren't just pushing people out of their homes and out of the city, because quite frankly, a lot of these people, they have deep historical roots with this city and this community. But as a college student myself, I hear many of my peers and my friends talk about how they love the city, but at the same time they're afraid that they're gonna have to move somewhere else that's more affordable because they can't find housing options that are within their budget here in Raleigh. I hear stories about how their rent has risen sharply over the last years, and how sometimes it's even doubled for some.
Oof, wow.
And for some people, buying a house is completely out of the question. This is not an issue that is simply isolated to young people, older people. This is everyone. This is impacting everyone. And we can't build a stronger community with empty apartments and empty houses that no one can afford to live in. We have to work towards making that American dream attainable for our existing and future generations. We need to ensure development that puts into consideration the future homeowners and renters of tomorrow. And that's essentially, what I will aim to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there for sure. It's almost getting ridiculous out there now. And
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
even
absolutely.
I'm hearing so many stories of just folks who are buying homes almost have to spend exactly what they got just to close on it and everything in the apartments. I mean, I don't even want to. I look at some of these prices and I'm going, really? Are you serious? Like, I
Right.
don't even want to look at the cost sometimes. I'm thankfully in a good place right now. But for those who may not necessarily, I wonder and I worry
Yeah.
because we always used to talk about how places like California, New York, and DC were just too high and everything. We always used to kind of just laugh and sit back and go, well, that's not us. It's real nice and affordable here, but
Yeah.
we really can't really point that finger anymore. Now
Yeah.
it's kind of us over here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems
Uh,
like every week, every day, there's this news article on ABC 11, WRAL, News and Observer, about how rent is rising at an alarming rate, or how housing prices are going up, or how our housing stock is going down. These are all alarming articles, and it seems like it's the new norm for us here in Raleigh and in this region. So we have to do something about it.
yeah, for sure. And and obviously we don't want it to lead to a situation to where it leads to more crime and such. And given everything that's going on in the country with rising crime and policing, the issues of policing, over policing, and such, what's your position on crime and policing in the city of Raleigh, just on the macro as a whole? And if you are elected to this position as a city council member, what would you do to both alleviate crime and also ensure that there is fair policing for all citizens and such within the city limits?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, to address crime, there does seem to be a rising trend of crime, particularly violent crime in the city. But we can't simply mitigate crime in the city until we take a more community-oriented approach to policing, and ensure that we support those living in underserved communities in Raleigh. So, I suppose the question is, where does it start? It's essentially starts with incentivizing people who live in Raleigh to stay and become police officers, through advocating for things like higher pay, increased rigorous training that focuses on de-escalation rather than escalation, and increased mental health support for our emergency workers and those in need. Quite honestly, it's time to take a more proactive approach when it comes to policing here in Raleigh, and that's exactly what we will aim to do.
Great to hear that. Because I mean, obviously, it's great that there's a lot of changes being made in the Raleigh Police Department as of late, but I always feel more can be done, especially
Yeah,
for all citizens, Black and Brown and
absolutely right.
other. So that's definitely a main issue, especially in the southeast part of the city, for sure. And just to kind of move along, we talked about transportation earlier, you mentioned, and we talked about affordability. Now, gas
Mhm.
prices have been on the rise as they have been, and such. And you mentioned even about this other alternative methods of transportation. Now, Manu, what would you do as a council member to make Raleigh more of a green city in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Raleigh recently announced that they plan to make moves, towards decreasing their carbon usage 80% by the year 2050. Well, I want to further that goalpost and have city staff examine ways to ensure that the city of Raleigh is able to be 100% carbon neutral by the year 2050. Some potential ways we can move towards this goal today is by advocating for walkable neighborhoods, walkable, affordable neighborhoods along transit corridors, obtaining federal grants to expand our public transit options, advocating for landscape restoration projects that increase the number of green spaces across our city, and increasing funding for our stormwater infrastructure system to mitigate water pollution. All of these factors combined can absolutely help to help Raleigh become a more greener city, while also moving us towards that 100% carbon neutral goalpost.
For sure. Sounds good to me. Now, Minu, how has campaigning been so far? And when did you, just for the audience out there, when did you officially declare that you were seeking this office?
Yeah, absolutely. So I announced sometime in September, late September, that I was going to seek this office. And, we've been campaigning rigorously since then. But, anyone who tells you that campaigning is easy and stress-free is simply lying, honestly. There are certainly stressful moments where my staff and I will set specific deadlines for events, posts, and whatnot. And it's all, go, go, go from there. But I think it's well balanced with the fact that I have a great support team, my staff, my campaign manager, my family, my friends. They're all supportive of this campaign, and that's what helps me keep going. I am proud to say that we had our official campaign kickoff events last Saturday, and we had over 60 plus people attending.
Oh, wow.
Managed to fundraise over $10,000 during that event, which brings our total fundraising to around $25,000. Overall, it's truly is a great experience, and I've definitely learned a lot over the past few months.
That's good. That's great to hear. Now, just tell us about the people that you have met on the campaign trail. Is there anyone or any instance that sticks out to you that really moved you and really kind of reinforced your reasoning to seek the office of City Council in Raleigh? Was there any particular story, any encounter, any particular instance where it really moved you and it really kind of signaled to you, you know what, this is why I'm running. This is why I'm doing this. Tell us about that type of experience or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past few months, I've spoken at several events here and there. And the ones that really stick out to me are the ones where I spoke at a Korean American Chamber of Commerce. And, after my speech, numerous people came up to me, introduced themselves, shook my hand, and, with tears in their eyes,
oh, wow.
Told me how much it means to them as a fellow Asian American to see someone like them running for office in this region. They talk about how they've been, waiting for this moment pretty much their entire lives. And they offer great words of encouragement. That type of stuff is what ultimately keeps me going at the end of the day. But it's not just Korean Americans, Asian Americans, but I have young people walking up to me and doing the same thing too. Telling me that I've inspired them in many ways, and the fact that I'm able to make such a difference in someone's life and offer an ounce of hope to these people, it really truly is humbling.
Wow, that's great. Now, does public service run in your family at all, as far as in the past, like this anywhere? Or what is there any family member or so, whether it was here or elsewhere, that either ran for office or served in a public capacity, or even like a town committee that you're aware of that kind of inspire you to some degree?
Not to my recollection, no. I'm actually, the first in my family to seek public office, and other than my parents being involved in their Chamber of Commerce duties for the Korean American community here in Raleigh. Other than that, not much I can think of right now.
Right. Well, definitely, I commend you for being the first to run. Now, do you? I will ask this: do you feel as though, and I could just say this from my own perspective,
Yeah.
haven't seen too much Asian American or Asian representation in public offices or even as candidates throughout the course of honestly my lifetime, or even more specifically in North Carolina or the Raleigh-Durham area specifically. Why do you feel that there's been a lack of AAPI representation when it comes to candidates or even just public office in general, whether that's here or elsewhere throughout the country?
Right. I think that's a very valid question to be asking. But I think it's primarily due to the fact that, I think if you ask any sort of Asian American, political action group, they'll all say the same things. It's extremely difficult to organize Asian Americans in any region. The only place where it's viable is probably where there's a higher population of Asian Americans, like Los Angeles or New York or Boston. But primarily, I think it's because it's extremely difficult to organize the Asian American community, where the Asian American population is incredibly low compared to white other demographics. And so, obviously, Asian American candidates are going to run into that sort of problem going forward. But with a population of Asian Americans growing, with immigration starting to flow, we might see a more of a mitigated, see it be more mitigated in the years to come.
Do you feel there's more activism within the AAPI caucuses, just more so in general? Because I've definitely seen a lot more present and prevalent, even within the Democratic National Committee than I would even say 10 years ago. Do you think there's more activism within the AAPI community
Oh,
nowadays?
absolutely. I think in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, we're seeing a lot of hate attacks towards Asian Americans. If you look at instances in New York, you're seeing people targeted because of who they are as Asian Americans towards violent acts of crime. And so, that sort of really inspires people to take up in arms and, be active in their community as Asian Americans and giving a voice to us. And so I think these recent actions have truly inspired people to be more active in our community.
Wow, I definitely agree with you there for sure. And do you think that maybe in the past, that before I guess I would say that the pandemic and everything in that regard, I'm sure you know of the model minority myth. Do you think any of that contributed to a lack of activism from the AAPI community? Because from the perspective, and I'm really drawing this from a place of allyship and such, but do you feel, or have you heard, I guess I would say, chatter to where there's a lack of organizing or activism or civic engagement, at least from a public office perspective, was because of that? There was almost a mentality that we're good, we're good in our place in society in America, so therefore really don't want to ruffle any feathers. What I mean by ruffling feathers is other communities like Black and Brown communities where there's more obviously a history of that, and at least more out front in public, at least as we've seen, as we know. and
Yeah.
where there's a long history of protest
Yeah.
and such. So just given that, would you attribute some of that to that stereotype or that myth of the model minority theory at all in any regard to lack of activism or engagement in the past?
I think it's incredibly hard to say, but based on my personal experiences, my father and mother, they aren't extremely active in politics, and neither are their friends, quite honestly. But coming from that perspective, I think it's primarily around the fact that politics here in America is much more different than politics over in South Korea, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There are different perceptions, there are different ideologies. So I think, from how my father says it, it's hard to determine who the actual good person is, quote unquote. So he has a hard time gauging what the issues are, and he has a hard time, even as an American, he has a hard time distinguishing whether it really is his duty to vote. So I think it primarily has to do a lot with getting out into those communities, speaking their language, ensuring that they are aware of these issues that are prevalent in these communities, and letting them know that their voice has their vote has an impact, and that they need to go out and vote whenever they can.
Yeah, I absolutely agree to that for sure. I'll say one particular individual or public figure that sticks out to me from the AAPI community is Andrew Yang, and I'm a big fan of his, especially with what he was trying to propose when he was running for president, and even more recently as mayor of New York with basic income, universal income, and a lot of those policies kind of, or those suggestions, those public suggestions seem kind of outrageous a while back. Now we're seeing it more mainstream and more nuanced to conversations and such. And yeah, I'm not necessarily am saying that's because of who he is, but I would just say that I definitely think, as I said from the top, Manu, that government, the democracy, along from every office, every constituency, where it's congressional district, state senate, or state house seat, needs to have members in these offices that look like yourself, myself, anybody else, regardless of income or whatever else might be a factor. But yeah, Andrew Yang is certainly a favorite political and or public figure of mine for sure. And I don't necessarily know if he kind of resonates the same to you for sure, but just as far as representation goes for the AAPI community, I certainly at least like Mr. Yang's perspective on a lot of social issues, and even just with economic issues in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what more and more Americans have to realize is that we truly are a melting pot. And as such, we need just as much representation in the decision-making processes that we have in this institution. Giving a voice to wide, broad array of the demographics that typically don't have a voice during these processes. I think that's a key part to it. And I think more, as the years progress, as the months progress, people are becoming more and more open to it. This isn't a revolutionary idea. This is something that, quite honestly, should have happened years ago. But here we are today, and I'm just glad that we're making progress here.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you feel, Manu, that your opponents, or lack thereof, are not addressing when it comes to this campaign or this election cycle? What issues do you feel as though is not being brought up enough, not mentioned enough, or not given enough attention or flavor, or anything in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, I'm running against one opponent, the incumbent, and I think that my opponent doesn't do enough in terms of promoting affordability in Raleigh. We've discussed the importance of incorporating ideas of urban planning, like new urbanism, smart growth, complete streets, and the like. But time and time and again, my opponent has been a dissenting voice to any sort of effort that aims to bring these concepts to Raleigh, which would have further enabled the development of affordable housing units across Raleigh. His approach to affordability is more reactionary than proactive. But like I said, I mean, we can't continue to shuffle our feet while the issue worsens. We need appropriate action to be taken today while also considering the future homeowners and the future renters of tomorrow. And as a future renter, as a future homeowner myself, I think I, quite frankly, need to be a voice at the decision-making process, to voice the future, basically.
Right. Absolutely. You're right on target there for sure. Now, Manu, if let's just say you do win, would
Yep.
you like to consider higher office or further office down the road, like state legislator, Congress, any of that spark your interest at all down the road? I'm sure it's come to your mind.
Well, I can't say that it hasn't come to mind, but uh, it is something that I have thought about, and I think that's a decision that I'll be making once we get to that point in time. I think my full focus is on winning this election and this election only. I can only think about so many things at once.
Spoken like a true politician, so you're already there. Now, let's tell the audience out there, especially in the Raleigh area, why you will win this election. Why do you feel you will ultimately win?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm extremely confident that we will be successful on election day, primarily because of the hardworking staff that I have and the overwhelming amount of support that I've received since I announced in September. My staff has worked diligently from day one, and I honestly wouldn't be this far into my campaign without them. I'm also confident that as soon as we start knocking on doors, phone banking, and more, with due diligence and determination, we will absolutely win this election come November.
Cool, awesome. Now, how could folks in Raleigh who are listening, or anybody out there, contribute to your campaign and get involved and become activated? Tell folks out there how they can do that to support you tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go volunteer, you can go donate, you can support this campaign by going to my website at leeforraleigh.com. And we have an issues page, we have an about me page. If you want to learn more about me, what I do, who I am, and what I stand for. And we'd appreciate all the help that we can get.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Manu. You definitely have a friend in me here and a supporter in me here. So you have an open spot on this platform, or any of my platforms at any time. And if you definitely need me for anything, definitely reach out. But thank you again, Manu, for joining the virtual couch here tonight, and for everyone who will tune in. And we will be back next Thursday at 8 o'clock right here on Clay's Couch.
Thank you, Clay.